Starburst Accelerator provides seed funding from the top business angels and venture capital firms dedicated to aerospace, defense, and security, as well as access to the largest aerospace group stakeholders to get your first 1 million contract. It's a pleasure to welcome to the stage Francois Chopard, founder and managing director of Starburst.
Welcome everyone and good morning. As Plan F said, my name is Francois Chopard. I'm the founder and the CEO of Starburst Accelerator, a worldwide accelerator based in LA, Paris, Munich, in Singapore, dedicated to aviation and aerospace startups. And I want to talk to you today about aerospace and why it's happening now. Why it was not 5 years ago, why it's not in 5 years, but it's really happening now. And first of all, before talking about aeronautics, I just want to come back and talk about cars. Just picture in your mind, how was the car 60 years ago or in the 60s? It's probably something like this, right? What about cars now? How have they evolved? It's more something like this. So a lot of improvements in so many different ways, in the design, the shape, the performance, the autonomy. Great. What about also train? Major improvements, major transformations. Of course, computers. So in all this industry, in all this different industry, a lot of things happen. And now let's come back on aeronautics and what happened in the last 60 years. Basically, could you tell me which one is which? Which one is from the 60s and which one is from now? Except on the painting, it's probably about the same. And it's not me who's saying that, it's Tom Enders, CEO of Airbus. They are still designing airplane the same way that they used to do 60 years ago. They still have the same shape. So, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's not been innovation in that area. For example, the Concorde was developed 50 years ago. Unfortunately, it's not flying anymore. It stopped flying in 2003. The Space Shuttle, amazing innovation also, but it stopped flying in 2011. And also something very interesting, if you look in detail of these two drawings, it's about how we designed wings. If you look in detail, the way you design wings of an aircraft and you manufacture them, it's still the same design than it was 100 years ago. They just replaced woods and fabrics by titanium and composites. So why this? Why something like this happened? And even if you think of a passenger in the cabin, with his iPad, he has so much more power, computing power, than the pilot himself. With an internet connection in the airplane, which is the case now in most of the flights in the US. He can have access to all the traffic that is around him, the accurate weather. He could also redirect the trajectory of the aircraft in a much accurate manner than the pilot itself. So again, why is that industry like this? And it's probably for that reason. For some reason, the price and the cost of life in the sky doesn't have the same value than on the ground. Would you be thinking of grounding a fleet of buses because of a traffic accident? No, but that's what's happening in the aerospace industry. And also, these big giants of the industry, they use that security, safety issues to build this barrier to entry, to build these big walls to, in some way, for security reasons, protect their industry and prevent, of course, all other players to enter in it. And so that's what they did, and that's why for so many years nobody was able to break in that industry. But fortunately, along the years and in the past few years, we've seen a couple of pioneers. Who knows in that room SpaceX? Who heard about SpaceX? Yeah, again, not that much, maybe 20% of them. SpaceX, so my predecessor on ESA talked a little bit about this, but they did not exist 10 years ago. In 10 years, they were able to build a rocket, launch it, bring it back, landing it on a drone ship, successfully. At that time, when Elon Musk started these startups, these big players, they wanted to throw rocks at him. They were laughing at him, and they thought it was a joke. Even 2 years ago, they were saying that it was not possible. But he did it, and he did it in not just on a technology standpoint, but do you know how much SpaceX is valued today? $12 billion. So it's not only just about technology and innovation, it's about a business model. Skybox, we talked just before about Planet Labs. They were the first one to disrupt the satellite industry by developing these CubeSats. They were very successful, and they sold their business to Google for $600 million. So again, you know, that's something. And then the last one, Hugo and Explicit Hugo, they were able, with a small team, to break into the in-flight entertainment industry that it was just from now managed by the big players of that industry also. And Explicit, with a team of 10 people, they were able to develop the lighter economy class seats in the world, 4 kilograms in titanium and carbon, and 2 times lighter than any other seats. And they did that, and they were able to certify it, which is something of a big deal, in less than a year, and able to sell it to airlines in less than 6 months. So basically, these guys, a couple of years ago, showed us that it was possible to break these barriers to entry, and make it happen. And even when you look at the last innovation of Airbus and Boeing, for example, we talked a lot about the A380, the biggest airplane of flying right now. It's compared to the 747 of the Boeing, it's not that big. It's maybe 10 or 15% bigger than an airplane that was developed 60 or 50 years ago. The last Boeing, the 787, all in composite, again, is not even lighter than the current, or than the current one or its competitors. So what we can really see now, and what we can really say, is that the big innovation will not come from the big players. It will come from this tycoon, it will come from the small players, it will come from the startups that are really entering into that space. And because the large players are not doing the innovation anymore, they are not playing it, we still have, all the other ones basically are jumping into it. And it's not from now, it's from a long time ago. Since the ancient Greek, we always wanted to fly. The sky was freedom. And as soon as humanity stopped to innovate, then there's more people who want to do so. And again, that's really what's happening. So at Starburst, we were working with more than 300 startups around the globe that are really willing to break into it. I'm not going to talk about all of them, of course. I just pick 10% of them, just the tip of the iceberg, to really show you what's happening and what's happening now. And if you see some of the startups that are really amazing, just reach out to me at the end of the presentation. I would be more than happy to talk more about it, because it's going to be quick. So if we talk about, first of all, aviation, there's so many startups who want to develop personal flying vehicle. This guy, Jetman, some Swiss pilots flying around A380 for 15 minutes, 200 miles per hour. It's really existing. They are having so much fun. These guys, this Hungarian flight, they want to develop the bike of Star Wars. And it's working. They were able to do some flight for 15 minutes in a stable way. Veilon, a French startup, a low-cost flying car, they have already sold a couple of them to special forces and to the army. Aeromobile, a Slovakian car that is already flying, certified, and everything. Terrafugia, the most known one, it's a spin-off of the MIT. They are certified as a car and as a plane, and again, it's flying. This one, XTI, it's not flying yet, but it's a bunch of very wealthy LA guy who wants to develop vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Another startups, and there are a lot of them. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, no, sorry. Z Aero, it's a startup from a spin-off of Stanford, potentially financed by Google, that wants also to develop a electrical vertical takeoff and landing car. Sorry, I don't have any more pictures on my screen. Okay. Urban Aeronautic, an Israeli defense startup, thank you, that also want to address in a more defense way the flying car. And then I want to focus very quickly on these two ones, Lilium Aviation and Aerion Cooperation, because they are really doing something that is amazing. First of all, Lilium, they are doing this, the fifth element version of the flying car. Basically, they develop an amazing prototype that is already flying on a very large scale with small electrical engines embedded in the wings in a very smart way, and they plan to do their first flight by the end of the year with retractable wings so you can drive safely on the road. Next one, they are doing the Concorde of now, and they are Aerion Corporation. We talked a lot recently because there was other startups who want to break in the Supersonic Flight, bringing back, you take off from Paris in the morning, you arrive earlier in New York, you take your breakfast, and then you leave in the afternoon to Paris again, or London, and for the price of a business flight ticket. So. And it's not for 20 years from now. They plan to deliver their first aircraft by 2022. So it's tomorrow. So basically, we want this not to happen anymore. And there was another one, Boom Aero, a startup out of Y Combinator that we are working with. Again, they are developing the same supersonic concept. I was just talking about flying, but it's not just about flying. It's about the sky. It's about discovering space. Astro Robotics, they are developing spacecraft to go on the moon or to go on Mars. Altus, they are doing robots to explore this kind of new planet. Moon Express, they are developing interplanetary vehicle to go from one planet to another. DSI for some space machine made in space to develop plants and manufacture on any kind of planet. And they did it already in the International Space Station. Bigelow, that's an interesting one. They are developing expandable apartments to bring into space. And again, it's not futuristic. They were launched in the SpaceX spacecraft just a couple of weeks ago. So it's now up in the air, flying and testing. And then another future SpaceX that is doing a new spacecraft. Again, the space is also an area for new type of telecommunication, new type of drones, to not see that anymore. Or I'm not talking about this type of drones. I'm talking about a huge balloon that will go 40 kilometers in the sky or 100 kilometers in the sky to either do some observations on telecommunication network. These new solar drones, again, to develop communication from the sky and have access where there's no telecommunication network on the ground. Or these CubeSat that are the size of a very small cube, again, to develop a network from the space. Or FireSat, a constellation of satellites more on observations to detect any fire at any moment in less than 10 minutes at the surface of the ground. So you see my point? It's really happening now. There's more and more entrepreneurs that want to break into that area that has not been broken for a long time. And this 300 startup, there's a lot of energy. If you multiply that by 10 or 20, the number of people, that's the same. That's probably 5,000 engineers and PhD. That's the same number of people that are working at Airbus Innovations, Boeing Phantom Works, and Lockheed Martin Skunk Works all together. So there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of these startups that, and there's more and more money that is poured into that. The Tory report said that in 2015, there was the same amount of venture money that was put into these startups than in the last combined 10 years. So there's more and more money about this. And basically to achieve more freedom and basically more freedom, yes. So it's not going to happen just by themselves. They still need to work with the big clients, with the big giants, because these giants, they still have the knowledge, they still have the capability, the assets, the clients. So our work at Starburst is also to facilitate this kind of relationship and to make these startups entry into the market easier and to, again, lower the boundaries in the aerospace industry. And we want to make sure that in the next 50 years, we won't be able to show that picture again, but in less than 10 or 15 years, we will show this one. Thank you very much.